Hello, this is Jose Palomino with Value Prop and the Revenue Throughput podcast. And I'm very excited today because our special guest, who I'll be introducing in a moment, is somebody who actually is a significant thought leader in an area of business that matters to all of us. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Ed Wallace, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and managing director of AchieveNEXT Human Capital. Ed, welcome to the Revenue Throughput podcast.
Thanks, Jose. It's great to be here with you and your audience.
Oh, this is really exciting for us because I know the things that you deal with, that you help organizations with, I know is going to be really in the sweet spot of what our audience needs to hear. So maybe to just give us some context, tell us just a little bit about what you do presently and who you really work with typically.
Well, Jose, as you know, I was formerly a VP of sales for 20 years for a software company. And I found a niche when I decided to start my own business around helping companies build better business relationships. No one was teaching that. So for the last 15 years, that's what we've been doing. At AchieveNEXT, we help sales leaders, business owners increase sales through a strategic focus on relationships. That's our value statement. And we work with large companies like Dow Chemical, all the way to entrepreneurial businesses with smaller sales teams, because everybody says their business is built on relationships, yet a lot of business owners and a lot of VPs of sales really don't do anything intentionally about it other than we hire great people.
Well, that's interesting because I've heard that myself, right? Certainly working with people, and one of the things they feel particularly proud of is the quality of their people. Typically, we work with owner-led businesses, so the owner's still involved day to day. I know you've worked with that size company and also all the way up to large corporate giants, as you've mentioned. But when you think about that kind of customer, that leader, whether it's an executive leader in a big corporate team or the owner of a company, and they say, I got great people because we're really good at hiring great people. We find great people. But what do you think are some of the kind of biggest challenges they still face when it comes to the things you work on?
Well, right now, one of the biggest challenges, and in your podcast title, you have the word revenue, is how do I secure my existing revenue stream and how do I grow in a pandemic environment? And we've been in this environment for a year. And the biggest challenge I hear is these really great people, they don't want to do things virtually, especially maybe middle-aged Gen Xers all the way through the boomers. They don't want to shift. They're waiting for it to come back. You and I both know, Jose, it's not coming back. And that's a dose of reality for our customers, because they're starting to realize I have to upskill my sales team, especially my usual top performers. They've got to adapt to this rectangle because part of their business going forward is going to be in this rectangle.
That's interesting. But now these are folks also kind of, you mentioned it, and I know we don't want to generalize necessarily by age, but there is a sense of the way things have been done for the last 20 years, 30 years, that relationships where you meet with people, you connect with people, and then you get opportunities to talk about the value you might bring to those people, right? So clearly. And now it's the rectangle. I love the expression there. That really captures the idea, where maybe some other folks with less experience are comfortable with the rectangle, but aren't as good at that human connection. They just don't have the seasoning or experience there. Do you see any opportunities there or missed opportunities where like leaders are kind of confused? What do I do next? I got people who are comfortable with the rectangle, but not so much or yet with people. And I got others that are really comfortable with people, but not with the rectangle. How do you resolve that?
They both have to be upskilled. The millennial, say, sales professional, they have to be upskilled in, eventually you have to leave your bedroom. Right? Eventually, you're going to have to go to a conference. Eventually, you're going to have to build proximate, I call them, relationships. The opposite is for the more veteran or the more seasoned sales professional. They've got to find a way to do it. I have this one customer, and really interesting. He not a huge company, maybe 25 million in sales.
Okay.
About a 17, 18 person sales team. That's a lot of salespeople for that amount of sales. And they were spending somewhere north of 200,000 a month on travel expenses. So 10% of their top line was going to travel. They when the pandemic hit, he quickly shifted everyone and he professionalized their backgrounds in their offices. They sell laboratory products, had a demo station right behind them. He created a demo station for every one of these reps. It has a little logo, but it's not overwhelming, but professionalized the brand behind the rep. Even if it was in the rep's bedroom, nobody knew it. Not only did he maintain his same level of sales, he's spending about $2,000 a month now on travel. So this small business owner, 24 million in sales, or maybe mid-sized business owner, all of a sudden his bottom line was a lot richer than it was with all the running around he had everybody doing. So now what's he going to do? He's made the pivot and he's done the training to get both demographic salespeople doing things in a hybrid way, but he's modeling 75% virtual and 25% proximate versus 95% proximate and 5% virtual. So it's a great example. And again, his performance, his performance is better.
Well, what's fascinating,
in the pandemic.
Right. What's fascinating about that, all things being equal, and I don't need to know what their margins are, but that 2.4 million in travel expense saved is not just 10% of top line, it could be 50% of EBITDA. So it's a huge delta on the value of the company, all of that.
Yep.
So which leads me to my next question, which is really around, we like to just dig in on like common mistakes where people aren't doing this right or they're not addressing it correctly. And you alluded to it, that people waiting for the old normal to become normal again. Is that just one of the common mistakes you see people kind of holding on to hope that somehow let's all go back to what it was? And are there other kind of common mistakes in how people are looking at this issue of relationships in sales?
Well, that's the big common mistake, right? But then as we peel that down a little bit, Jose, if we think about it, think about the example I gave of my customer who made the shift and he was way out ahead of it, way out ahead. He did this in April of 2020. Wow. Oh, he's way out ahead of it. And he's hiring now for those skills. So he's pivoted everything. The other common thing that I see is the taking for granted of things like your LinkedIn profile. I have another customer, more of an old line customer. They sell injection molding equipment. They're from Ohio, okay, but they're all around the country. And I would say the demographic of the sales team is mid 40s and up, not many younger people. And I was doing a training program for them 2 weeks before this happened in Las Vegas. We had 70 of these sales engineers. We do an awful lot with technical sales teams, sales engineers in the room. And I said, hey, if you have a LinkedIn profile, stand up. The entire room stood up. I said, if your picture is on your LinkedIn profile, remain standing. About 5 people kept standing.
They didn't have their pictures.
They didn't have their picture.
Wow.
And so the realization starts sinking into this more mature sales team.
And if you had asked if it was a good picture, they would also know. It's not like a wedding.
Yeah. Is it the picture from your high school prom, right? So one of the things that actually we've been helping them with that is remembering that the buyer demographic is shifting to millennials. The older millennials are in their early 40s. Jose, where do you think the first place they look when they're trying to check out a sales rep calling them? Where do you think they go?
LinkedIn has got that and whatever the company website that's being purported, right, to check it out. They're going to check you out online. Absolutely.
And when they see the prom picture, you don't post anything, you don't share anything, you don't look like you're a business person in their industry, you're just a sales rep. So I think the other shift that we're seeing and we're actually promulgating is this whole idea of you're not a sales rep, you're a business person. You're just masquerading as a sales rep. And I think that's the advice I'd have for your audience. If you are allowing your sales team to be stereotyped as salespeople, they will speak to the level that they're capable of at the customers they're calling on, and they're not going to get to the level you want them to speak to. There was a, I forget, I think it was Hub. What is that website?
HubSpot.
HubSpot, right?
Right.
HubSpot had I'm quoting a survey, and I can't remember the name. They had a survey, and 85% of buyers expect their salespeople to truly understand not only the industry, but not only their business, but the industry. About 12% of salespeople actually understand how the solution is really going to help from a strategic standpoint at that customer, their industry. Well, the first place you start building that credibility right now, besides your website, which a rep doesn't have anything to do with, right, is your LinkedIn profile.
That's fascinating. And, just the consistency of that, of the what's been happening in the last, 10, 15 years, that, and other studies have done this, where the buyer right now is 65%, 70% through their buyer's journey before they even have contact with a salesperson. And that's going to keep growing to the point where it's like 90% at that point. And they only want to talk to people they want to talk to. They don't want to be talked at, and so on. So in that world where the window of opportunity to really make a difference, because again, the buyers checked out so many options, they kind of know what they want to pay, they know what the features they want, they're very educated on that. Is it still possible to build real relationships when you have such a short window? In the old days, you had the 100%. You were the educator, you were telling them all about your product, maybe telling them what Billy Bob down the road is doing with the same kind of machine. And now you're being contacted or allowed to speak to people when they've almost decided already. So where do relationships fit into that, and how does that work? And I'm just curious how you help people with that.
Well, diving into how to go find those customers, that's for another podcast, right?
Sure.
But let's say you're engaged in the buying process now. They've done their 60, 70%. They're far along, and you're one of the 2 or 3 that they're willing to talk to. They're probably willing to talk to you because of your brand. Now all of a sudden, now the brand switches to the sales professional being the value proposition for the business. So we've gone from the company brand to the sales rep being the brand. I always like to say, and your whole business is about helping with value propositions, Jose, and marketing, messaging, and all that. A sales team is a group of living and breathing value propositions. Mm-hmm. And every one creates a different journey for that buyer within the swim lanes of the corporate brand. But there's a lot of room for the sales professional to create a great experience. Again, it starts with their social presence. It starts with what we call strong discovery questions. One of my favorite discovery, this is a $100 freebie for your audience, okay?
Okay, all right.
You're going to love this. If you don't love this, you can discontinue the podcast right now.
Okay, all right.
We talked to VPs of sales and sales. We've trained 29,000 salespeople, okay? And I'm so tired of hearing what keeps you up at night. That's my opening discovery question. Or what would you fix if all the typical that make you look like a sales rep question. So here's a $100 question. Jose, I know you're on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, I am. Absolutely.
First question, Jose, 2020 has been, you're my customer, right? 2020 has been, and you don't have to respond, okay? Right. 2020 has been a challenging year for everybody. As you look back on 2020, what do you think was your greatest accomplishment? And then when Jose says, I shifted to this and this really worked, you say, well, tell me more about that. And Jose tells you, well, why did that happen? Jose talks more. And then is there anything else? Ask. You've heard that one before, but it's usually ask, tell. And then you ask the last question, which is, that's pretty amazing. I mean, you maintain, like I'm talking about my old customer, you maintain, right. You grew margins, you maintain top line. What do you think could get in the way in 2021 of maintaining that momentum? There's your $100 question, right? You got to what's keeping you up at night, but you didn't ask what's keeping you up at night to get them started.
No, and you also help them see, when you ask somebody what keeps you up at night as your entry point, at least, and I'm sure this is probably why you've developed a different approach, which I think is brilliant. You're asking somebody who you just met to tell you what they're most embarrassed about, what they might be ashamed of, what they are worried about. And some might tell you candidly, others are just going to, clearly, others are going to like kind of deflect the question because it's a little intrusive. It's kind of like, well, what do you mean? What
it's a lot intrusive.
Right. I don't know who you are. I don't know if you can help me. So when you start with achievement, accomplishment, because most of the folks we deal with, if you're running a business or whatever, you're not a clown. You've accomplished something. You've built a business, and maybe you hit some rough waters. But you might be proud of how we navigated. We didn't lose any passengers on our ship. You know what I mean? It's kind of, even what is it, the SS Minnow in Gilligan's Island still made it to land.
It did.
Well, with no loss of souls, right? So no, that's fascinating. So, when you think about an organization that maybe hasn't looked at relationships, business relationships, the way you think about them, and let's say they're saying, man, the world's changing around us, not just the rectangle because of COVID, but the world's been changing for a while. So it's not like this accelerated things, but these things were starting to happen. What kind of transformation do you think is possible if somebody says, you know what, I've seen the light, I got to do something about relationships? I imagine it's a lot more than calling a sales meeting and say, okay, everybody, be nicer to your prospects and customers. So what really is possible?
Well, it's not really about being nice. It's about creating an experience where they view you as someone they might want to actually partner with. I talked about you distinguish yourself through your questions. You distinguish yourself through something as simple as the way you're dressed for that interaction. How do you make every interaction matter? How do you demonstrate you are prepared for the interaction? How do you get the 5-letter word sales off your forehead as they're looking at you? It starts with the provocative opening question. And then as you go through the dialogue, it's time to qualify. And again, that may not happen initially, but they're thinking about us emotionally initially before they're thinking about us rationally. And they're judging your hair color, your glasses, the gel in your hair, the quarter zip you have on. What's this guy like? What's this person like? So I think it comes down to how prepared were you? How prepared were you for that interaction? The way you ask the questions that demonstrate you not only understand or trying to understand their business, you understand their industry. And you want to start off positive, like you just said. As you go further along in the dialogue, you might have an opportunity to do some qualification. Another $100 gift for you, Jose.
Okay. No, I'm adding 200 so far. All right, that's good.
Bant.
Okay.
Bant. Okay. Do they have a budget? That's usually all we ask.
Right.
Does this person have the authority? That's the A.
Right.
And a great way to ask that question is, well, first of all, a little value adds in each one. For budget, you ask a question along these lines. Once they say, well, not really. Well, is it something? So this is a strategic project for you. That yes, it is. Well, is that something that you can get budgeted, or do we need to build a business case together for it?
That's great.
I know.
It's not pushy.
It's not that hard.
No, and it's something that actually needs to get processed. That is, it's a legit. What I love about it, Ed, it's not a gamesmanship question. It's a legit question to be asked.
Yeah. And it kind of takes them off the hook. I really don't have a budget. Well, maybe we can build a business case together, or an ROI, whatever. Authority, second one, BANT, authority. Well, are you the decision maker? I don't think you really want to ask a question like that. You might want to say, yeah, hey, Jose, who else would be involved in making the decision on this? Are there other people we need to engage? Not bad. Usually Jose says, I'm going to bring my boss into it. And okay. And so now there's a path there. They're not qualified yet. BAN, N is need. Do we really truly understand the need? Can we come back to our own business and articulate our value proposition? There you go again, Jose, to my boss, my business owner, as to why we should keep investing time. We should be deciding as to whether we want to invest time with that prospect, not the other way around. Can we come back in and articulate the need in the form of a value proposition of how we will solve that need? Most salespeople can't do that. So we talk about upskilling, we got to do that. And the last one is timeline. Do you have a timeline?
Right.
What is the timeline? Well, pretty tied up for the next 2.5 years.
Right. Can be.
Oh, well,
especially-
then,
Well, yeah, and I know you work with, and I've worked with companies as well that are involved in large capital sales, like capital equipment. Those things are sometimes put on 2-year time, literally on 2-year timelines as a project's being considered. So you just got to know that. But that's great, and I think it's a really great takeaway for our listeners. And it can be easily remembered. So B for budget, right? A for authority, and for need, right? And that's like the need behind the request, right? So if somebody's asking, let's say for $100,000 printer, and ask all about my print, I sell printers. Why are they asking? Why do they need this printer at this time? Could be because they've been losing business, because they haven't been able to keep up with the requirements of the industry or whatever else it is. If I just focus on the immediate dialogue, I'll miss out on the bigger opportunity that this is actually driving $1 million worth of their business.
That's right. Yeah, really, truly understand the need. And then time is the last one. And, there's something else around BANT and also the discovery questions. And it has to do with going through your existing pipeline. So if you're the owner of the business, you have a small sales team, or your bigger company, you have a sales leader, I would have that sales leader put BANT against every single opportunity. We find that rarely are more than 2 of those identified by the sales rep that's forecasting that sale.
Right. That that has it at 90%.
Exactly. Well, what's the need? Well, Charlie likes me. Okay.
Right. That's good.
So it's really not about this sophisticated approach to relationships. It's really about just upping your game when you're interacting. It's not that like, I'm a simple guy, right? And if you think about relationships in terms of a process, which is what we're talking about here, if we think about 3 categories of relationship, we start off as acquaintances. We want to become peers. Ultimately, can we become an advisor with that customer? Kind of aspirational. We want to really be business people talking to business people. That's a hard enough leap. But a lot of times, half the pipeline is our acquaintances. So hopefully, hopefully
that's fabulous. So Ed, just one thing I always like to ask here: is there some resource or something, because you covered so much incredible content here in just these 20+ minutes we've been together? Is there something that I could point people to that would give them a better sense of kind of what you do and how you help people, and maybe something they could take advantage of, something they could read or something like that?
Well, one thing I want to do before I give you my stuff is BANT is a business partner of mine named Mark Roberts. That's his process. Okay. So check out Mark Allen Roberts on LinkedIn. And we do a lot of training together. He's one of my faculty. He invented BANT. So I don't want to take credit. No, I love BANT. I use it all the time. I want to make sure Mark gets credit for that. As far as reaching out to us, AchieveNEXT.com. That's the name of our company. What are you looking to achieve next?
Okay. Cool.
From a performance standpoint, easy to remember. And you can reach me at Ed Wallace 007 on LinkedIn.
Ed Wallace 007. You're kidding me.
I can't believe I got it. I plugged it in one day because I was changing my LinkedIn name. I was changing my email address on my LinkedIn, and 007 was available. So I'll take it.
Wow. Shaken, not stirred. I love it. That's great. That's great, Ed. Well, listen, it's been fabulous having you as our guest today. Ton of great content for our folks. And I think just so many practical insights on how I think anybody at any scale business, but certainly for the owner-led businesses we serve, to think about their sales process, even if they're the salesperson in their business. It's still, everything you said makes a lot of sense, and it's so helpful. So thank you again, Ed. I really appreciate you making the time.
My pleasure, Jose. Thank you.